everyone, and welcome to AEC Today Reports. We're so happy that you tuned in this evening. As always, we're going to invite you to share this broadcast so that others may hear the information that we're going to receive in this episode. We hope you're doing well out there. We hope you're staying safe, but we also hope that you're enjoying the season. We're really excited this evening because we're going to be talking to some of the people that I get to work with on a daily basis, some of the members of our church ministries team, and we're happy to see how things have been for them this year, transitioning in ministry midstream. It's going to be an interesting conversation. I can't wait to chat with my colleagues about it. So we hope you'll stay tuned after this break. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to AEC Today Reports. We are so happy that in this episode, it's a special feature because we have some of church ministries leaders here to talk a little bit about how this pandemic has impacted all of us and some of the transitions we had to do in ministry midstream, and also share with you some of the wonderful things we have coming up in 2021. So I want to invite few of my colleagues to join us at this time. As you can see here, we have with us our youth director, Pastor Patrick Graham. How you doing, Pastor Graham?
Good. Glad to be here.
All right. We have our women's ministries director and associate superintendent, Ms. Cynthia Poole. How are you?
Fine. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes. And we have our superintendent, John Alberty. How's it going?
Going well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and as well as our general counsel and public affairs and religious liberty leader, attorney Jackson Doggette Jr., Esquire.
Glad to be here.
Yes. So, this is just some of our team, but I thought it would be nice to kind of bring us together as we wrap up this year of AEC Today Reports, because you all, our audience has seen you all here on the program from time to time, sharing different things that were coming up. But I just wanted to candidly share with our audience what this has really been like for us as ministry leaders coming into 2020 with our plans, knowing what we had in mind, and then all of a sudden, finding out that there's a pandemic, the office is closed, and all of our activities have been canceled. So, we're just going to open up the floor. This is just open dialogue. What was it like? Oh, okay. Well, for me, I know I was in denial at first because if you guys remember, we were going around to the different areas doing trainings.
That's right.
When it hit. And so our last one, before we actually shut it down, was Baltimore. And that was early March. I think it was like March the 9th. Mm-hmm. And we were there training because we had no idea really what was happening. But the next one, New Jersey, if you guys recall, that's when we said, no, we have to shut this down. So for you all, what was the point when you realized that, oh, okay, this is going to change things for us? When did it hit you all?
I think for me, when we started talking about camp meeting, we thought we could be out March, April, and we discovered, well, we're going to have to close school up this year. But when it got to about camp meeting time and we were planning virtually, it was like, this might be real for a minute here.
It's so true. We've never done a virtual camp meeting like that ever. So that's it. What about everyone else?
I felt like it was sudden, but very early on, I realized that there had been a fundamental shift in how ministry would be done going forward. It was very early. I realized normal is gone. It will never come back. And that it's an opportunity. For me, certain parts of ministry has become easier, more efficient.
Okay.
That's what I mean, more efficient.
Okay.
And it's become less expensive because there's less travel involved.
I know our treasurer loves that.
Yeah. So there are opportunities that have come. The pandemic is tragic, but because of the fundamental shift that has happened in society, ministry is an exciting new adventure. It's digital forward. It's not digital only, but it is digital forward. And if we would get our minds wrapped around that, we would become more effective than we ever were before at less cost than we ever did it before. I'm afraid that most people involved in ministry at this point are not accepting reality. They're wishing things would go back, and they're not. And I'm doing a lot of watching now, and it appears that people are not willing to take advantage of the opportunity, just standing in place, trying to get back to what they knew. It's never going to go back. So I'm spending a lot of time now working on helping people to accept reality and see the opportunity in ministry, as opposed to wishing things would go back to how they were.
That's a good point. I mean, I like that you said people are almost paralyzed by this change. Like, no, it has to go back. Like, we're sitting waiting for things to go back, and we have to face the reality. So for youth ministries now, I know that this was a big adjustment. How did you cope with this new reality from you?
I just quit. I quit my job right after. It was crazy because we just got out of January. You know how we all are when January comes about. We have all of us plan in the year before how we're going to come out of the starting blocks. And so we came out of the starting blocks in January with a real big training that happened. And it had happened the same day that Kobe Bryant, that same Sunday that Kobe Bryant. And I remember I said, man, I think it was January 26th. And I said, man, how do we start the year like this? I mean, you know, and then after we all here had series of meetings that went through and we started to see how this thing was going, then it really got crazy. It didn't even hit home when they said, don't come to work. We were just kind of like, you know, I was like, okay, no problem. We won't come to work. You know, we're good. But the reality set in when I know that attorney said paralyzed, but I saw panic. It can go both ways. I saw paralyzed in one sense, I saw panic in the other. When you see 90 something Pathfinder clubs stop operating, you see adventurer clubs stop operating, and it still goes, John Alberty, it still goes into our school system because they all connected. When you see everything kind of hit that's the paralyzed you're talking about. Then I said, man, now it's time for us to do ministry, not the way they taught us in seminary, not the way they taught us. You know, we knew how to do ministry coming out the block. Now we had to learn how to give the resources, push resources new in a brand new way. And I think that is where the reality came in middle of March. We couldn't wait any longer. Like 10 days after, we had to keep moving into things and get it going. And here's what I liked about it. I'm sorry to say that because I know attorneys used the word tragic. But here's what the advantage that we took. We all had to work together with education, with the young people, with the children, with law, social stuff happened, Doggette, in the same light. The whole, the whole Black awareness and the political, everything happened at one time where we had to work together. That's when reality set in. It almost like God hit us and said, "Oh, you don't want to work together? Oh, you're going to do it now." And everybody started to work in synergy to get the resources on the table. That's when it hit home for me.
And the thing about it is, Doggett brought home a good point in that the sooner you face reality, the more you're able to mobilize. And so Superintendent Alberty, with the schools, we had to shut that down. And was it March? Was it at the end of March or?
Oh, that would be March 16th.
Yep.
So remember that date.
Yeah, I think it got real for me. Cool. And one day they're getting traditional learning, and then you turn around next they're at home. And I think for me it got real because we didn't have time to really think about it. We just had to make it happen. We knew the students still need to be educated. We knew that teachers still had to teach, students still had to learn. And it was the fact that we've been operating one way for so long. Now all of a sudden we had to figure out how to just pivot. I mean, automatically, and not just pivot, but even make sure we had the resources to pivot. So, we're in school one day, kids at home, and you got kids at home that may not have computers. You got teachers at home that are used to using their resources in the school building, not at home. And man, but I will tell you this, I was so amazed at how well our Allegheny East teachers did. The call went out to pivot. They didn't skip a beat. If they knew kids didn't have technology, they made sure they were running off copies before this thing really took hold to send things home. They worked with parents and they didn't skip a beat. And I think for me, the realness of it was just the fact that I don't know if we're going to go back to normal or when we're going to go back to normal. And it was hard because even after people had been home for a while, parents were still calling the office saying, well, when are we going to open schools back up? And I'm looking at the news.
Like, this can't be real.
Forget the news. I'm going to the store, can't find toilet paper, paper towels. I'm like, I don't think the school's opening up anytime soon. So, but and I think for us, one of the things that we did when this school year started, we made a decision very early on because people still, like Elder Doggett said, it hadn't hit them yet. They thought we were going to open back up for the 2020-2021 school year. And when people were on the fence saying, oh, well, we'll open up, Allegheny East, we took a strong stance. Look, we're not opening. We're going to go virtual. And the only school that we will open will be Pine Forge because, they are a boarding academy and we are able to have a little bit more control there. So while people were still making decisions, we'd already made our decision. And I think what helped us was the fact that we just embraced it. This is the reality for now, and we have to move with it. And people kept saying, well, what about those parents who pull their kids out, go to other schools because you guys are not opening? And Ms. Poole and Ms. Perrin and I, we kept saying, they'll pull them out if they want to, but I guarantee you, those schools will close and they'll come right back or either be doing the same thing we're doing. And of course,
that's what happened.
All those schools that promised to open, they either didn't open or the ones that did open, they opened and they had to turn around and close. So that's when it hit reality for me, was when I realized that this thing is not going back to normal. And when I couldn't find toilet paper and paper towels.
Yeah, it hit you where it hurts, where you can really feel it.
I think the beauty of this, though, is starting with ministry and schools. We used to be local. Mm-hmm. We are now literally global.
That's right.
And it's important that we begin to think global. Mm-hmm. If we don't, we are missing an opportunity to serve humanity.
That is so true. I think once we got over all these plans that I laid out for 2020, I had to cancel. Yeah. Like for me, I know we were planning our communication conference. I had ordered a step and repeat. I had this banner, I had puzzles, I had giveaways, and the program was canceled. And I had to go a little weeping for a couple of days, but then I had to snap out of it because I said, wow, even more than ever, our communication leaders need training about how to tackle. I mean, it's like you have this little mourning period, but you gotta, as John used the word pivot, you gotta pivot quickly, because the sooner you pivot, the more efficient and effective you can be in continuing your ministry. And I think that's what we as a team were able to do with all of our members. I mean, okay, we can't do it live, let's do it virtual. We can't bring them together here, let's set up a group there. So let's talk about some of those pivots. What are some of the plans that you had, but kind of had to do them differently.
But Tosh,
Yeah.
before you get to the pivot, I wanted to back off of something that Doggette said.
Okay.
When you said globally, and correct me, John, as you say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have a student from Japan.
We do.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes. They get that child up in the middle of the night. She is a part of our program.
Mhm.
And that's going to happen more and more when they see the quality of the ministry we produce. You now have a global marketplace.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think going back to that, when this thing does go back to normal, there's no way we can not do what we've been doing. Now that we found a way to reach people that we would not have been able to reach before, whether it's in ministry, education, the youth, women's, we have to continue. That may mean, for example, for our churches, for our schools, making sure we have the bandwidth to make sure all of our facilities now have cameras in them. So if we're doing, so we can do something hybrid. So if the pastor's preaching, those individuals who've been watching online that want to continue to watch online can continue to do that. Those individuals that are not ready to send their kids back to school, they can still follow the teacher in the classroom. So now we have to start planning, what do we need to put in our facilities to make sure we can continue to offer something that we've been offering that we found to be successful, that has allowed us to really reach people and spread the gospel the way that we were not doing it before.
Yeah. Can you imagine what this does for Christian education for people who are serious about Christian education?
Yep.
I would also like to add that the resources to expand our ministry are global.
Yeah.
And we need to be serious about sharing our case for support so that people know that their dollars are going to give a higher ROI, return on investment, than used to what they used to get. It's our responsibility to get the data out there so people can evaluate it and see the value of what we're doing. So a lot of fundamental things need to be put in place in order to build a bigger facility, so to speak, to our ability to minister. We can no longer do what we are used to. We have to do what is going to advance the mission. The other thing is, and I'm going to stop talking. I get excited about opportunity.
Yes.
We have to be focused. It's easy to be scattered because when you're just putting things out, people think you're making progress. Activity does not equal progress, but it can appear to be progress. If we are focused on what we're really here to do, and we really do a good job at that, the sky is the limit. I mean, Ellen White said the last movements will be rapid. Right. If we're focused, they can be exceedingly rapid. Right. But we have to know what we're doing. And I always tell everybody, there is only one mission in the church. There might be 1,000 mission statements. There's one mission: make disciples. That's it.
Well, take a look.
Everything else is just method.
Come on, let's be realistic now. We got more people in Wednesday night prayer meeting now than we've ever had before.
And Sabbath school.
Sabbath school.
You got more people in Sabbath school than you ever got before. I mean, again, that's why I want to call it now the new normal, because there's no such thing of normal now. It's what we call the new normal. You see people on Facebook, even from, Allegheny East families on Facebook who are saying, I'm enjoying watching my children learn. I'm enjoying being behind them and pushing them ahead and watching as these teachers are. It's becoming the way the Acts agenda in the Bible wanted us to be anyway, to fellowship in those type of ways. So I think the hard part is how are we going to make the transition with this when things get better. I'm talking about as far as COVID is concerned. We now have to do things differently. I want to use this word that I believe I wanted to piggyback with what you were saying, attorney, is this: the infrastructure is going to change. And And as the building changes, as the pews no longer make sense, and the pulpit, the wooden pulpit doesn't make sense anymore. I mean, we had a problem when the wooden pulpit turned into a glass pulpit, and people left church. No, it's am I right? I mean, people were like, "What? I cannot believe that we moved the pulpit and it became a glass pulpit with the." You know, we had a problem when we had the three angels and it changed to the three
flames.
We had so we're gonna have to learn that even though things change, you're right, the mission still remains the same, and we just got to figure out ways to use the Wi-Fi infrastructure and the satellite infrastructure and the camera infrastructure. We got to find those ways to keep God's message moving. And it's possible. We just got to be able to sit about and let it happen. Let these IT people and these communication people at your church step up their game, and watch them do their thing. It's going to happen. It's going to work out.
Yeah, but I think you bring up a good point, because I think in doing digital ministry, it's allowed people to kind of shake off all these unnecessary traditions or things that really had no significance. I mean, you know, when you thought about them,
we haven't shaken them yet.
Some, let me say, some have started. Some still need to do a little bit more shaking. But when you think about, like you said, the mission is to make disciples. And when you take away all that extra stuff that we like to add into our services and focus on that, I know for me, once we closed the churches and everybody was going online, I got kind of a overload, because everybody was coming on Zoom and Facebook with so many different programs, but they weren't focused. I think that was a important point you made. We wanted to be relevant, we wanted to be seen, we wanted to seem active, but we really weren't doing anything that led to mission. But I think now, even I know, as our team, as we're going into 2021, we're more focused on what really do our constituents need? What really can help people get a little closer in their relationship and be disciples to win others? So I like what you said about being focused, not just being out there for the sake of being out there, but being out there with a mission that really impacts people, and that's key.
I think it was natural that churches in the beginning were struggling just to stay together,
right?
Because there was a sudden shift from fellowship to distance. And so people were just trying, how can we just stay together? Now that we've been through this for a while,
right,
how can we do ministry? And the next opportunity is more members have the ability to have ministry, be a personal disciple maker.
There you go.
More members have that. And the more we focus on that, we're going to find people in our congregations who have global ministries themselves, bringing people to Christ. It's not going to be just the evangelist and the pastor. It's going to be the members in the pew.
Oh, I was just about to say that.
Bringing this thing to a close. God's
church is going to grow now based on friendship evangelism, and not on how much funds we have together to decide that, oh, it's worth $50,000 just for one soul. We're not going to preach that sermon anymore. It's going to come down to my neighbor next door. It's going to come down to, what's going on in the community. So now you're going to see a rush of community activists. You're going to see more of Rob Smith, his ministry in community services. You're going to see that old Dorcas Society start to come back up, because the church is going to be the lighthouse in their neighborhood, while the gospel is going to be global. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the churches, we still need the churches. We still need the lighthouses in the area, but they're going to have to function a whole lot different. And that's where our learning curve comes in. How do we function in the community and shut down the sorority and the fraternity houses? How are we going to be able to do that? That's where new ministry comes from.
But, this leads me to, with women's ministry, I've always had a tagline, and I don't know if people really paid attention to it, but it's a ministry for every woman, and every woman with a ministry. because generally people tend to think of women's ministries as the retreats, the little social club, they have the little Sunday meeting. That is not women's ministries. If you look in your church structure and there are more women involved in the different ministries, then I'll feel like my job has been successful, because I have gotten every woman involved in a ministry. And that's women's ministry.
Listen, if you want to put numbers on the table, I think the attorney was talking about this earlier. You want to really put numbers on the table. The youth ministry department could easily, between January and March, we could easily spend about close to $100,000 easy just on trainings as it is. The food is about 20 grand when we all meet and over for 2 days. Now people are happier that they're in their home, right? They're not going through a 3-day. You're training them on exactly what they want to know and what you have to give to them. And by the time you're done 6-7 hours, they have everything that they need at their fingertips on their iPads. They're ready to go. We're not wasting funds. I hate to say if we were doing before, but we're not wasting it, but we're using the funds for better use than for repurposing it. Another thing that I've learned in services, and man, I know I'm gonna get beat for this, but I could preach for an hour. Not anymore. Now that you're online,
you better shorten that thing up real quick.
They can get at church. They're a little bit squeamish about getting up and going to the bathroom and not coming back, but they have to stay to get their pocketbook or get their purse later on or whatever. This one, they can press a button and they out. So, like they taught us in seminary, after 20 minutes, they can't hear what you're saying anyway. So I've learned to I don't know how it happened. I've learned to preach 20-25 minutes tops. And here's what I found out about this. I hope preachers are listening to this. I've made altar calls that people have decided to follow Jesus online. Now, I may not be able to put them in the water, but again, what is our purpose? Is it for us to physically baptize them or for them to walk to their local church and say, what can I do to be saved? So everything has changed. Everything has changed.
I want to piggyback on that. A lot of the presentations that I'm watching online around the country do not do 3 things. Number one, they do not capture guest information so that they can begin a relationship to earn the right to ask them to follow as you follow Christ. So the guests are watching, but nobody is starting a relationship with them. They're not capturing that relationship. Number 2, I watch good works like so many people are food insecure now, and our churches are doing the food ministry, and we'll see it in the broadcast, but then nobody asks for donations to help expand that ministry.
Right. The support.
In other words, not tying giving to relevant reasons to give.
Right.
And number 3, the one you said, I'm not hearing the altar call because there's no infrastructure to move the person who responds to the appeal to the next step. Right. So I have been doing webinars and seminars and blogs to try to help pastors to see it is vital to create the infrastructure that makes it easy for people to do what you're trying to get them to do. Follow Christ. You have to create a roadmap that people can easily follow without a lot of hand-holding. They can make these decisions on their own, but you have an infrastructure that keeps people from falling through the cracks. Simply sending the word out on the air is great, but ineffective. You must make the appeal. But if you're not ready to receive the people you call, then the appeal doesn't work either. So what you did, Pastor Patrick, is great. You must do that. I'm gonna say one more thing. You can see I get excited.
You're passionate. It's okay.
But it is. Oh man, the thought just left me. It'll come right back. Give me a second. When people come to Christ, good night. It just left me.
You shouldn't have said that.
It'll hit me like lightning.
Hey, that's the new normal.
That's it. But here's what, until you think about it again, this is one of the things, like you said, there has to be some type of way to engage them. Let me in one of our meetings, and all of us was at our meetings, and none of our meetings are super closed or secretive. We understood that there are people who move out of our territory who still support us, right? Mm-hmm. And when I say support, I meant financially support. Yeah. And that's what you were just talking about just now. We can't just preach and leave it. We can't just feed and leave it. We can't just do games with young people and pathfinders and leave it. There are people who God has already put into place to say, I want to support that. Not only by sharing with my friends on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or social media and even emails, but they want to support it financially. Right. Our ministry together, and I say this because John Alberty is on here with us. What I see about our young people also is that we have to close the triangle. We have to close the triangle with home, school, and church. And that's why we can't get rid of church. We just have to let church, that church, we have to understand why they exist. We don't exist to hear the man up there to preach for 45 minutes. Church is bigger than that. Fellowship is bigger than that. And that's what we have to learn to, if we can close that up, then the ministry, that's why I'm not going to change what you said, Alberty, because I don't like to say school and ministry. It's all ministry all together of what we do. And the pandemic, as Doggette says, as tragic as the pandemic is, right, God still there's still a light at the end of the tunnel to say, hey, children, I didn't leave you, in dismay.
Yeah, all is not lost. Yeah,
all is not lost. We got to find a way and be open-minded to it. The new ways of doing things, podcasting, sending messages on your phone, messaging, down to messaging are ways that we can spread God's word and keep us all together. So I just do believe that the infrastructure is going to be different, but let's grasp hold to it.
Absolutely. And the key word is opportunity. So I know from the communication standpoint, even the fact that we're doing this right now, we always had AEC Today, but AEC Today Reports was birthed out of the fact of, we don't get to see people anymore. How can we connect? Oh, let's do it virtually. And I have to say, I've had more opportunities to hear from more people throughout our conference and the wonderful things that are going on because of this pandemic. And, before it was trying to coordinate people coming to the studio or going to Virginia or going to New Jersey. Now, all I have to do is send people a link and we can be connected to our constituents and everyone can see them. So I said, wow, God, you actually provided an opportunity for communication ministry to expand during this time. And I don't want to waste this opportunity, which is why we have this program. And so for the rest of you, what are some of the opportunities specifically related to your department that you've seen come out of being in this pandemic? Well, as a matter of fact, you know what? Before you guys answer that, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back and hear the opportunities you've experienced with your ministries during the pandemic. And also we're going to talk about some of the great things we have coming up in 2021. Let's take a quick break.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a unique mix of all kinds of things.
Come on, Jules, spot on this last one. There it is. Keep going with it. Leo.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
All right, just before the break, we were talking about how we as directors were using the opportunities, looking at the opportunities and able to pivot into our ministries after this pandemic. And so we're going to hop right back into that discussion right now.
So couple of opportunities I see in education. I remember one of the biggest things that we would get was that parents, let me say this politically correct. Parents were concerned sometimes about sending their children to our schools because we don't have all the bells and whistles in some of our schoolhouses. So of course, you know, the public schools, the charter schools, they have all the bells and whistles. So this is where that's where they want to send their kids. Now I get to tell parents, during this pandemic, no one has bells and whistles. They're no longer schoolhouses anymore. So that is no longer an excuse. We can take that off the table now, and that's what we've done. That's what we've been telling parents, because now, although they had the bells and whistles, we still have God. Even through the pandemic, the one thing that people sending their kids to our school for, which is to get God, we still have that. So that means that we're outmatching these other schools that you are looking at because their facilities were better, because we are still able to provide not only a Christian education, but we're still able to provide God. And what I think has happened during this pandemic, because parents have been at home and they've been helping their kids, or they've been in the room while the screen is going on, they see what actually takes place in the schoolhouse. And now they realize how much our teachers have been doing. Now they realize that there's prayer going on before each class starts. Now they realize that this Christian education they're paying for, that is worth it. So even when we open back up, if another school pops up with more bells and whistles, they're going to have that burned in their mind, that this is why I have my kids in this Adventist education, because they have this curriculum that works alongside my philosophies at home, work alongside the church philosophies, and bring everything together. So that's what has come out of for me, that parents have been able to see what we actually do in our schools, and they realize that all that other stuff that people use to sell schools doesn't mean a hill of beans compared to having God actually as part in the curriculum.
It's true. You know, one thing, John, I'm hearing from parents is they realize maybe it wasn't the teachers all along. Maybe it's my little angel that was the problem in some of those cases. So it's been a reality check for a lot of parents as well. Like, okay, now I see what the teachers are dealing with day to day. That's cool. What about the other leaders and other departments? What are some of the opportunities of this pandemic has actually provided you that you weren't even anticipating?
Well, I would say people have become more involved in social activism. Even if they're not going out in the street and marching, I would guess that Allegheny East members voted this year than ever. Because the idea of voting, and I've had to deal with this for a long time, where people believe that Adventists should not vote. Right. And there are pastors and members who teach people we shouldn't vote. But I've had the opportunity to help educate people to understand what Ellen White said, what she meant, how it applies, and the fact that we as citizens of the country ought to use our influence in every way we can to do good in the world. So I think the pandemic forced people to think about issues that they just hadn't thought about before. So I saw that as a positive.
Yeah, and to do something about it. I think,
right.
You know, I saw a lot of people just in my social media circle who were being very vocal about issues. I mean, never once had I seen them post anything about social justice or Black Lives Matter or anything. But for some reason during this pandemic, you know, because we're all in it together, there's that sense of we're all in a pandemic, and so we all need to stick together. Kind of came up, and so I think for some people, like, wow, I don't just have to observe these things. I can actually be involved. I can record videos and post them. I can share this with my social media sphere. So I think that's a great point. People were educated. People were mobilized. Probably more than we've seen before, because their attention was focused because of all the other stuff that they used to be able to do, they weren't able to do. All right. What about women's ministries?
Well, with women's ministry, what I've seen is an opportunity to even globalize, because when we had our events, I had an audience from Africa. I've noticed that the other conferences, the leaders are watching what's going on, and now these programs are being replicated in their conference. And so I appreciate that because it says that it was worthwhile, and prayerfully it's helping just more than Allegheny East women, that it's really going global. But I really was amazed when I had quite a few of my African sisters who were coming on. That was back when we started with the tea parties. And so now going forward in January, we're going to facilitate the 10 days of prayer. That's the way we want to start the year out. And it's going to start January the 6th. So I'm going to depend on the communications department.
Yeah.
Just push that out there so that everybody has an opportunity to participate. And prayerfully, as we start the year off that way, we'll be much more effective.
Amen. Amen. Youth, come on, what's going on?
Plenty of opportunities. I mean, again, because of the amount of subsidiaries that's in youth ministries, the spending of finances is always just so heavy, you know. Listen, we had a camporee online with people with young people in there putting up tents in their living room. A couple of us outside, you know, sending in pictures and all of that. You know, you can't kill this thing. God is not going to allow Satan to kill ministry. It's just not going to happen. And when we feel like we're hopeless and we can't do anything, and you don't want to do anything, God's going to replace you. He did that before the pandemic, and he's going to do it during the pandemic. So you got to be alive and well to be able to see the opportunities in all of this. We have the opportunity of meeting with people, of splitting up our days and having, you know, instead of waiting every month, now we could meet once a week for 15 minutes really quick and just have get things done. We have less paper now than before, and we don't push paper the way we were saving trees. And I really mean that. When I look at these as opportunities, as far as it's concerned, there's even a time that's coming up that we have of something planned with our executives that we're going to have Grubhub drop off food to their houses while we have it's a conference expense. And no, but
using some of those funds you've been saving, huh? Okay.
But think about it. Instead of bringing in a chef, instead of bringing in, you know, they can order what it is that they want. It's a whole lot less expensive than before. If they stick around longer, our certificates, even the certificates that we used to do, we don't do that anymore. We now email it to them and they print it out and put it up wherever if they want to put it in color or whatever. So there's so many different opportunities that we have to do ministry. We have now children who are singing, recording on their phones and sending it in for special music and all of that. We don't have to beg them to do anything anymore. Everybody wants to do this in this time frame. So when I look at what's happening now, the opportunities that we have, the truth is that the opportunities are endless. Mm-hmm. It's just endless. We don't know where to begin. Matter of fact, the biggest problem that we have because of the opportunities is that we're afraid of stepping over into women's ministries and stepping over into education and stepping over into social justice. And that's the hard part because it's endless. You're going to find yourself in everyone's program, you know, or everyone's ministry, I should say. So it's something that we just have to grasp hold of as far as opportunities are concerned. Where are we going next year? Is that a part of the question?
Well, no, we'll talk about that. But
sure.
There's something you used to always say. I remember that ministry is not event driven. Ministry is not event management. You know, because sometimes as ministry leaders, if we could pull off a certain day every year, if we can have this event, then you know we validated ourselves as the leader. And I think one of the opportunities that this pandemic has provided is showing leaders that it's not about the events anymore, because I mean, even though we still have virtual events, you got to get granular now with things. Like you got to do things that really matter and are really tending to specific needs that people have. And what I wanted to ask you is tips for our leaders, because right now I know that some of our leaders are struggling because they can't have those days that they're used to. You can't really have Usher Day like you used to virtually. It just doesn't. Some things just don't translate anymore. So what do we say to our leaders who are missing those things that they felt made them, who they were in their ministry? What can we say to encourage them or give them some hope that they still have a place in discipleship?
To me, it's about keeping connection. If you keep that connection with your congregants and then help them see how they can be of service somewhere else, that really motivates and regenerates them, and they feel that they have there's a need for them. They're serving a purpose. I mean, you're not going to be opening the back door, but you can certainly check on the people who used to come through the back door.
There you go.
Right.
And that gives the great old usher their purpose.
I don't know if y'all remember this song. Do not wait until some deeds of greatness you may do. Do not wait to shed your light afar. It's
right in the corner where you are.
And a lot of us, we feel like you need 50 people in order for your ministry. You need 100 people to show up in order for your ministry to be. No, we did guardrails. There are 7, 8 parents that come on all the time to see how to help their young people and different things that's happening. Leaders, even if it's 2, even if it's 3, do your work where you are. It's okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, attorney. Even if it's 1, don't say, oh, I'm not going to have AYS because there's only going to be 1 person there. Have it anyway. I remember we had a club in one of our bigger churches that only had 1 person in Pathfinders. They still had Pathfinder Day. They still did whatever it is that they have to do. So just brighten the corner where you are. Don't stop. Don't halt what you're doing because your numbers aren't there. People are watching.
Well, and I will say this. Don't turn into a Blockbuster. Follow me because I'm going somewhere with this. Blockbuster refused to change, even though the times changed. COVID has caused the time to change. So now we have to change with it. So that's what I would tell our leaders. It may be difficult, but if you don't change, you can become a Blockbuster where you're forgotten and everyone else is moving on to Netflix and so on and so forth. And you thought because what you did worked at one point, it's no longer working because times have changed. And I can tell you, this is the new normal. Even when our churches open back up, we're going to have to continue to change in order to keep up with the direction that we're going. Not just because of COVID, but because generations change. The things that we did in my generation when I went to church is totally different from what this generation does. So we constantly, as leaders, have to be watching the tides and watching the direction that we're going in order to make sure our ministry is keeping up, because that's what it comes down to. If we did the same things in the schoolhouses, where we just taught kids, for example, and hope that they got it, we would be doing a disservice to kids. Now what we do is we differentiate instruction. We make sure that we hit every child. We had to change because the learners change. Leaders have to change because generations change. COVID has caused us to change. So that would be my advice for leaders. Don't turn into a Blockbuster. I might get that on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
You need to be Netflix right about now.
Yeah, I would say one other thing. We are very used to being in control. We must become comfortable when we are not in control. Because God is, Joel said, the young men will dream dreams, the old men will see visions. God is anointing people to do things we never even thought about doing. And if we try to control it, we'll slow down what God is trying to do.
Listen, I could jump on that. I see this lady, she does Sabbath school in the mornings, in Sabbath morning. Oh man.
Tiffany?
What's her last name?
Claiborne?
It's a lady named Tiffany Claiborne. And I find myself sneaking over to hear her right through her Sabbath school. And as the months climb in, I'm saying, man, she's killing that thing as she's going through. Her name is Tiffany Claiborne. I don't know if we can put it down below, but I'm saying if you listen to her, you kind of say to yourself, oh, but she's not one of our, listen, that's why I'm telling you, God is going to get the average person to do his work when we're not doing what it is that we're supposed to be doing. Again, we're back to opportunities. Leaders, just pick up the pace and go ahead and do what it is that you got to do. And God will provide whatever needs to happen in order to get his work done. And you're seeing that all across the board. So when I get up and say, oh, you know what, I'm not going to do Wednesday night. And then my deacon gets up and says, I'm going to do Wednesday night from my house. And he got 150 people, 200 people on the line. We can't wait when he does that. We have to support when it happens that way. And I think that's the angle that we're going into. It's no longer left towards clergy. Even Sister White says it. Come on, it's not going to be clergy, but it's going to be the laymen that's going to finish this work. That's what you see happening right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's funny. Oh, I'm sorry. Even before the pandemic, I would go into churches to preach or to talk about education. And what I noticed, there were no young people in the church. And I think for leaders, we have a tendency, like you said, to want to hold on. And if we don't train these young people to take on ministry, to take our positions, we have to be okay with stepping aside. And I think a lot of leaders are not okay with stepping aside. You know, if a younger person is coming up who's able to do cyber school and do a dynamic job, you don't discourage them, but you encourage them. You make sure they become cyber school superintendent if you can. Right. But that's what we have to do as leaders. Our job is to train those other leaders and continue to bring them up behind us.
Absolutely. That's so true. And I had to say, particularly, I'm glad you mentioned the young people, because that's a struggle. Because one, a lot of them are Zooming with school, so they don't want to really Zoom with church. Like they're zoomed out, like that's not their thing.
That's the word, zoomed out.
Yeah.
But yet, when even during the summer, we were able to do a special series with the young people, and talking to them offline, they expressed how much they enjoyed just getting together with other young people and just of like-minded young people, and just talking and connecting, people that they may not have normally met. And I think that's important for our churches. Allow the young people to create spaces. Of course, you know, we have to have certain guidelines, but create spaces where they can connect as well. Let's not get so focused on making sure divine hour goes well on Sabbath, and you have a whole segment of your church that's lacking the connection that they so desperately need at this stage in their lives. But another thing I would say is look around at what others are doing. I mean, this is the copycat time. Like if you're ever going to like steal ideas, this is the time to do it. Look at what other entities are doing. If it's an idea that you think you can adapt to fit your members, take it. I mean, you know, ministry is open. I mean, digital ministry is open to so many. So don't just sit and say, well, I don't know what to do. Do your research, look around, see what can work for you, and see if you can generate some ideas. Okay, we're wrapping up, but I want to make sure that everybody kind of has a chance to tease some of the great things. And I'll try to share some of the things from our team members that weren't able to make it. But you know, church ministries, listen, we're ready to practice what we're preaching here, and we're planning a nice little lineup for 2021 to keep everyone motivated in ministry. We see our goal, our role as to enhance, equip, and energize all of you for ministry. And so we have a lot of things that we hope will do that in 2021. Who wants to go first with some of your highlights? And you don't have to give us the whole rundown, but what are some of the things you're excited about that we're going to be sharing with our constituents in 2021?
Let's let the lady go first.
All right.
Oh, such the gentleman. Yes. Well, I initially mentioned the prayer, the 10 days of prayer. And that, and of course, is intended to energize our young ladies, our women, our little girls, even, to be focused and ready to move forward. During the course of the year, we're going to be involved in community services. Pat made reference to it, how we can collaborate, and that has been our intention, to work alongside every ministry that's in the church throughout the year. Then we are going to plan a virtual retreat where we will come aside. Obviously, we won't be hotel, motel in it, or an elaborate spa, but just an opportunity to renew and energize ourselves in our wonderful home surroundings. We're looking forward to a wonderful year of women energizing, enhancing, and equipping other women to participate in ministry.
Amen. All right.
I'd like to share three things.
Okay.
Public affairs and religious liberty is about social justice and the emphasis of freedom of conscience. So the first thing that happens every year is the Religious Liberty Offering and Magazine Drive. It is important, especially now in this time where we have political leaders subverting democracy, that we remind people through these publications what democracy is and what freedom of conscience means. So in the January of every year, we have this, we raise funds for taking up religious litigation where necessary, and for sharing with lawyers and judges and politicians what religious liberty issues need to be grappled with as they're making decisions. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we are getting more involved in church lobbying or lobbying legislatures. So for the first quarter, we will be in Annapolis, Maryland, trying to pass laws such as providing incarcerated individuals with a plant-based meal option. Yeah. And helping those returning citizens from incarceration to be priority in the companies that are making profit off of those incarcerated individuals' labor. So those are two laws that we're still pushing with, and there are some others. So we will be involved in lobbying. And number three, we're desperately trying to get every church to find at least one social justice issue that they can get involved in. And every year in September, we have a conference that helps to expand our minds about what social justice is and how to use it in our quest for evangelism and making disciples. So those are three things that we're going to do. Oh, I have to add one more. I'm sorry.
Okay. Love it.
Allegheny East pastors and members are the authors of a devotional book. The month of August was Allegheny East month. So the Conscience and Justice Council is putting out a devotional book in January, and I hope everybody gets it. But we have authors from Allegheny East that covered the month of August.
Great. We'll make sure we highlight that when it comes out on the show so people know how to get it and purchase it. Great. Awesome. Youth Ministries?
There's so much that we have, but I just want to highlight that in March we are launching Flow, which is a young adult ministry, which it's fellowship, love, outreach, and worship. That's we're going to launch that in March. The union has helped us out with resources that we could put it in our 6 areas. We're also rebooting our federation for the year to work virtually. We're not looking at opening. We're not looking at being in the presence of each other. So we are rebuilding the federations where it's on the infrastructure of virtual events, those things that happen. But what we really do, Sister White says it, that rightly trained. That's the words right there. It's rightly trained. So we're not doing a lot of events. There's not a lot of events. Everything we do has to have a training aspect to it. And Attorney Flo came out of the situation that happened with George Floyd, where a lot of young people, I just want to be upfront with you, a lot of young adults came to me in a forum and said, what are we doing? What are you doing? What resources do we have? And I threw it back at them. What are you doing? They're the ones that came up with Flow. You understand what I'm saying? It didn't come from they're the ones that came up with it. So we're putting it back into their hands, but we do have the data of March. We also have a big plan that's coming up right now. We saw how great Pine Forge did in their bubble. We're using that same model, not a carefree model, but we're using that model for a STEM program, sports program, and of course, fun day program for Camp Danny Davis that's coming up. But we're very careful towards it. We want to make sure that we follow the same rules and organizational rules and the PPEs being protective of our kids. So we are doing research from now until about the middle of January, going into February, to make sure that it can be done. If it can be done, we'll be having a 3-week Camp Danny Davis. But once you drop your kids off, don't come see them. They're with us for.
I don't think you have a problem with that.
I don't think so.
I'll be asking for another week at the end.
So we're planning that, and we're teaming up with the education department, ministries, to be able to put that together. That's our crux as we move forward for the new year. That's just a couple of them out of many, but training is the key.
All right. We love it. Well, I guess we're still continuing school in 2020.
Yeah, I think for our department is simple. School never stops.
Right.
But no, so a couple of highlights I do want to put out there. Number one is, just this weekend coming up, starting Thursday, several of our schools are doing their Christmas program. So for those who are interested, you should be able to go to our AEC website and you should be able to log on there. I believe we have, they start tomorrow around 6:30. One thing that I didn't mention, we have a consortium of schools. We brought 6 schools together, and they're doing their Christmas program on Saturday at 5:30. So it'll give you a nice way, once the Sabbath closes, to sit down with your family and really enjoy that Christmas program. So those are a couple of the immediate things that are coming up. But one of the things I really want to push is the fact that we're asking people to start preparing for enrolling for the 2022 school year. Now is the time to really start thinking about it. And if you don't have kids, start thinking of ways to support those who have kids. There should not be a single child that cannot attend Christian education with the money that we have in our pews. Ellen G. White really talks about how parents are going to be held accountable for what they did with their kids. I also believe that everyone's going to be held accountable for whether or not they were good stewards of their money. If they saw families struggling to put their kids in that business education, they're going to be held accountable if they did their part to help. So my thing is help parents get enrolled. I'm sorry, parents who are interested, start enrolling. Those who are able to support, start looking at ways to support. And if you don't have a school in your area, remember that everyone who is a member of Allegheny East Conference has a school. It is called the Pine Forge Academy. So you can always support the Pine Forge Academy. And they have done a wonderful job. I just want to give a public shout out to the leadership there, for them to bring such a tight bubble together, and for us to be able to be able to run the school the way we have this year, while the rest of the world was dealing with COVID. I want to give them a shout out and kudos. And as I close, I want to give a shout out to our teachers, our Allegheny East teachers. They're just phenomenal, and every chance I get, I want to thank them when I can, because again, the Office of Education, we have the job to make sure things are taking place, but it's those teachers who are logging on every day. And when we go back to traditional, who are showing up in those schoolhouses that are really providing the education that are making our students, preparing them for the kingdom. So I just want to give them a shout out. So that's what we have coming up.
Great. That sounds wonderful. Wonderful. I want to also share a few things for communication department. Of course, we'll continue with this type of programming, except for we're going to, rev it up a little bit, include some segments that you can get accustomed to seeing every Thursday. We'll continue with Thursdays. But we also have our tech forum that we're going to do on Tuesdays with our media director leading out. So those who are still struggling with that equipment, you need to be online, you need to learn certain things, and you need a place to go. AEC is providing a place where you can come and ask your questions, and no question is too small, or no one needs to feel like, well, I'm embarrassed to ask this. It's a place where, it's a place where you can learn freely without judgment. We're also very excited in March. We are planning to launch AEC podcast. Okay. We are recognizing, as we've already talked about, this opportunity to reach so many people, and our communication team and some of our very own pastors will be part of this podcast that we think is going to shake things up a little bit, because we think it's time for a little shaking to happen. And so we're excited about that. We're planning to launch that in March. And I've been sharing it on the program. We want to create a business directory of all our AEC business owners out there. We know that times can be difficult for businesses. And as a conference, we want to support our constituents who own businesses by, highlighting yours so that our members can see how we can support each other during this time. And you guys are going to have to help me, because you guys were in the meetings when everyone was sharing, but I'm going to try to share some of what our other leaders have shared with us. I know with community service, Pastor Smith is trying to make sure all of our pantries are staying safe and compliant. So we're going to be going through that with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that we can continue to serve our community safely. And also those uniforms, they want you to look nice when you're out there serving. So we want to make sure our ACS leaders are properly uniformed, and there's a lot of training coming up. So a lot of people want to serve, but they don't have proper training. So ACS is providing some training. You want to look out for that. With Relationship Ministries, as you know, you all have been enjoying those webinars and dealing with some of those issues the church doesn't always deal with. Where there's even more. I'm not going to tell them the one that Dr. Defoe announced at a staff meeting, but there's going to be some interesting topics coming up in 2021. So look out for some more of those webinars. The stewardship, more than ever, people are realizing that stewardship is not just about money. And so Dr. Robinson is going to be sharing different ways that we can look at stewardship, and also revving up on our philanthropy. A lot of people are looking about how they can help their community. And so we'll be hearing more from stewardship about that. And there's even going to be a stewardship advisory coming up. So that's exciting. Personal ministries, disability, Sabbath school. There's going to be training for you guys every month. So you're going to be engaged with other leaders throughout the conference, partnering with Lake Region for training every week. So look for more details coming from our personal ministries department. Who am I missing, guys? I'm trying to go off the top of my head. So
Reeves.
Okay, and the CBL, we still have our resource center from the conference. So even though our actual store is not really open to the public, if you need resources to help you, our CBL resource center is still functioning and can provide resources to your churches if you need food or books or materials. Please reach out to Pastor Ronald Reeves, who is managing our CBL Resource Center. So as you can see, we got a lot going on. So stay tuned, and we're going to post all of this stuff in one place on our website. It's kind of our church ministries playbook. So you'll see everything that we shared and what we forgot to share on our website. And we'll have a calendar of the different things that are happening within our ministries that we want you to be part of, because our goal is to enhance, equip, and energize all of you so that you can continue to be the disciples that you were called to be. I want to thank my team members here for joining me and having this dialogue. It's been great. It's been an interesting year for us, but we've made it. We've made it to the end of 2020. And we want to praise God that we were able to see the opportunities and not spend too much time focusing on what didn't get to happen, but move forward with God's grace. Any last comments you all want to share before we end this evening?
Well, I was going to say also the women's ministry is going to be including a cooking segment in our ministry. So you can look forward to that.
Okay, that's good.
And that's not just focused for the women.
Yeah, we all need to cook. And a lot of us are getting tired of those same old recipes we've been using. We're not eating out as much as we used to, some of us, and we need some new ideas. So that's a good addition. Any other closing remarks from our?
Well, I would simply say Jesus is soon to come.
Amen.
Be ready and do his work while it is day.
Amen.
How can we follow that? Okay, so this is a drop the mic moment where we say thanks for joining us. But yes, thank you all. I've enjoyed the dialogue, and I look forward to doing ministry with all of you in 2021. Thanks for joining us. All right, everyone, we'll be right back after another break. We hope you'll stay tuned to all the wonderful things that we have coming up in church ministries in 2021. Thanks for joining us. Okay, everyone, that wraps up this special edition of AEC Today Reports. We hope you enjoyed the dialogue. We hope you were excited by some of the things that we shared are coming up in ministry. Our goal with all of our directors is to continue to do what we can to equip all of you to find ways that you can minister to others. And we hope that you were able to glean some of that from our discussion tonight, as well as look forward to more materials coming from our department and posted on our website that you can continue to be engaged in ministry, even during a time like this. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Merry Christmas. Every time I talk to you, we're going to say Merry Christmas until the season is over. But we hope you're being safe out there. That's very important to us. Please wear your mask. Please social distance. Please do whatever you need to do to remain safe. We value you, and we want to continue to provide information that you can receive. All right, everyone, we'll see you next time, Thursday at 7 p.m., because the more you watch, the more you know. Take care, everyone.